Well, hi everyone. I'm John Retlin with a retro review of WCW Nitro from July 31st, 2000. Starts off with a Gordon Solie graphic and 10-bell salute, one of the all-time greats, one of the greatest wrestling commentators, or greatest wrestling commentator, depending on your perspective, that there ever was, and the name value that he had to the NWA layered early WCW when Turner bought the company. It was great to see it. So how did they honor Gordon Solie's legacy? They booked a Viagra on a pole match. Viagra on a pole. This was the infamous episode. I knew I was getting close, but I didn't think that this was going to be the episode. And fucking hell, this episode was goddamn bloody fucking rotten. Nothing but run-ins, nothing but a bunch of fucking bullshit, a lot of horrible guest commentary, and one of the worst wrestling commentators of all time. It's either Madden or Josh Matthews. It's one of the two. And I'm talking long-running, because there's been some shitty ones that have been part of, like little runs. But as far as, anything that's been over a year, those are two of the worst. Jonathan Coachman may be, just at number 3. So, video package. I have Booker versus Sting. Booker in a shirt where apparently he skinned a 1960s/1970s couch to make it. Don't know what the deal was. Booker talks about being champ and, how the fans spoke and made him who he was and the people had to listen and everything. And it's funny. That isn't what he said about Naomi, but I'll do a rant about that at some point. Fucking hell. He says he will face Sting tonight. And then Jarrett shows up, and then they brawl, and then Sting shows up and removes his mask. And he's not burned because it was a fucking stuntman that did all that shit. And then because Booker's wife was, his wife at the time was in the front row, Jarrett pulls her down. Well, Booker could have easily stopped this. Jarrett pulls her down and hits her with a guitar as she's falling down. And so she's taken to the hospital, and Sting says, "Don't worry, Booker, go with your wife. I'll take care of Jarrett," instead of them having their match. Buff with Judy Bagwell versus Vito. Judy on commentary, fucking atrocious, because hey, at least Judy was there to support her son or whatever, as opposed to, the mother of one of the commentators or whatever, who probably died of embarrassment because she had that pathetic excuse of a son. So anyway, the action was fine. Buff was distracted because he thought the cameraman was Canyon again, even though it wasn't. And then a dreaded roll-up for 3. And then Kiwi, who is now known as Kiwi, they just changed his name on the fly. He wants a match with the Artist and says to Ernest Miller, "Hey, I want a match with him. I'm going to get angry." And he started to get angry and throw shit. Then he just went back to being normal and everything and strutting away like the fashion designer that he was. And in a Canyon interview, and he cuts Mean Gene. He hits the cutter on Mean Gene just off camera. Why? For what reason? And then that Pamela, whatever the fuck her name was, said to Buff when Buff was backstage, "Hey, Buff, Canyon did this." Buff goes 20 feet, DDT's Canyon. It's not like it was a big arena, for God's sakes. And Sting's looking for Jeff Jarrett with a bat. The Artists with Paisley versus Kiwi, not Kiwi, once again, are showing his toughness by being in jeans and a t-shirt and some weird twisting in, variation, not an X Factor or something like a reverse Falcon Arrow type. I don't know what the fuck they called it. Other people have had that move, but I don't know what the fuck they called it. And Kiwi gets a victory and then says, "Don't make me angry. You won't like me when I'm angry." Barely avoiding a lawsuit because of, the Hulk saying that line. Scott Steiner then shows up. He threatens to shove his pipe up Miller's ass, his lead pipe, that is. Thankfully, because otherwise it would have been a different kind of Steiner recliner. And then attacks Norman Smiley when he flirts with Medeja. And then MIA yells backstage while Hugh Morris yells at everybody. Lance Storm rechristens the Hardcore Championship the Saskatchewan Hardcore International title. It's an acronym for shit, in case you didn't want, or, shit is the shorthand version, in case the subtlety had been lost on you. National Anthem, Lance versus Chavo. He's going for 3, and he gets 3 belts, even though Hugh Morris and Lash LaRue are on commentary, and Half Crab gets the victory, so it's Lance 3 belts. Should have given him the world title, and then he could have dropped it to Booker right afterwards, the next night. It just would have been a cool visual to see Lance with all 4 belts. Because Lance, talent-wise alone, and given what they were doing with the WCW Championship, at least he would have been a credible champion. Nothing against Booker. I'm just talking about the other ones. And it could have given a big pop for a rating, because the ratings were only going into the goddamn toilet by that point. And I know some people are going to say, "Oh, well, the ratings started to go up when Russo came in or whatever." Yeah, briefly. Very briefly. And they weren't going to rise up enough. It wasn't going to get back to what it was. And also, Russo was a shit booker. He was a real shit booker. They were doing the Pinata on a pole match in November of 99, shortly after Russo got there. So I'm sorry, I just don't think it was going to work. So he's Lance 3 belts. Here's Nash. And then Storm, just goes up to him and everything. He's not going to back down. And he gets laid out. And he then basically, Nash talks about beating, a guy in his hometown, the future PCO. Remember that guy? Beat him. Jean-Pierre Lafitte, I believe is what it was. Beat him in, Canada. And then talks about Goldberg, football, and being a fighter. And here's Scott Steiner. And he says, we're not waiting until the pay-per-view. Then they brawl. Then they're going to have a match later. Miller says, how about I have a straightjacket match? Why the fuck not at this point? Jarrett is here to annoy everybody. He faces Sting. And we get chairs. We get a low blow to a ref. We get a Scorpion Death Drop on a chair for 3. I don't know if you can tell, but I didn't really like this episode. Perfect Commander out on commentary for this next match. 3-way dance for the WCW Tag Team Championships. Vampiro and Great Muta, the Dark Carnival. Sean O'Haire and Mark Jindrak. And Chronic, because they're the champions. It was a mess. Chronic retained, despite the fact that they got the pin just before O'Haire started to pin one of Vampiro and Muta. I forget which one. That's basically what happened. They got upset. They were annoyed because they felt that they should have gotten the victory, and then missed to Chronic. And then Miller says, "Hey, Shane Douglas, you're gonna have a match with Kidman." Jindrak versus O'Haire. Jindrak and O'Haire have a backstage thing before this and say they want another title shot because they feel they got robbed. Shane Douglas versus Billy Kidman in the Viagra on a pole match. I would love to know who this was for. Now, there were a lot of dick jokes. I didn't really find them funny, mainly because it was Madden saying them, and Madden has a comedic timing of a dead wildebeest. But this was fucking terrible. This was fucking terrible. And yes, on a pole matches, by design, are pretty shitty. I mean, the coal miner's glove thing and all that. But it was also how you presented it. If you presented it as legit. But it was Viagra on a pole. You have to get the bottle and hit them over the head with it or whatever. And you use it as a weapon, you win. Usually you use it and then you get the pin. No, you just had to use the weapon. Because that's how either press for time they were, or holy shit. This feud has been bad, involving sex tapes and Viagra. So we're just going to make it, as bullshit as possible. And that's what they fucking made it. Why? To what fucking end? To what fucking end was this? Who would this benefit? Did this benefit Tori? I mean, I don't really care if it benefited Tori, because she was already made into a joke by this point. She didn't deserve the sex tape stuff. That was bad. But Shane Douglas, I mean, fucking hell. That wasn't any good. And Kidman is the babyface in this. And he gets laid out with the bottle. Well, he gets the bottle, but then the bottle gets broken. And then Shane just declares himself the victor because, the referee declares Shane the victor because he's like, oh yeah, he broke the bottle and all that. And then they shove, Viagra in his mouth, which factors into something a little bit later. Major Gunn versus Miss Hancock. No, it does not factor into this. Miss Hancock getting hardcore. Shout out to one of my followers. You know who you are. Cake to the face. Man, so many cream pies to the face. That could mean a few things. Why not make this as uncomfortable as possible? We had Viagra, now we have cream pies. No, I don't know what I'm on about anymore. Meanwhile, David and Sergeant AWOL, a.k.a. the former Wall, are in the ring battling. We get a table spot with Major Guns that look like she really hurt herself. And then a slam for 3. This was still happening. This show was still going on. The Viagra on a pole match did not get the big ratings I think that they thought. Also, Kidman is there with some Nitro girls and says, hey, you want to take a ride? Because he's on Viagra. Because dick. Am I right, lads? Why the fuck not? Why? And who were the Nitro girls? Like, who were they? I have no idea who they were. Scott Steiner versus Kevin Nash, straightjacket match. Russo has an interview on Thunder. Cool, great. I have nothing to look forward to on Thunder then. A jackknife to Medeja, and then Rick Steiner shows up. And then Steiner recliner after a chair shot. And Nash is put in a straitjacket. Is anybody declared the winner? Who the fuck knows? Let's get to Sting versus Booker T for the WCW title. Booker selling his knee. And the match was fine until Sting got drug under the ring and beat up by the Demon. It's revealed to be the Demon. Booker would eventually hit the bookend for 3. Sting brawls with the Demon. Vampiro joins. And then Jarrett comes back from the hospital, since apparently during some time or whatever he was taken to the hospital after that match, because he was laid out. Terry Taylor said this. So, okay, weird. And then Sting gets put, while, Booker is being laid out by Jarrett. In fact, this is what this fucking deserves. They had the Demon's, weird, spoopy coffin thing that opened up, and Sting got put in there, and then the Demon set it on fire. And then immediately, right off camera, there are fire crew guys. Why didn't you just put the torch out, you fucking idiots? You didn't need to set the thing on fire. You need to wait for him to do that. Like, oh shit, we better use these very obvious safety measures that we have right in our hands to, just spray this down. It just, goddamn. And a guitar shot to Booker's knee. So he's been selling it. This show is horrible. Fucking horrible. Absolutely terrible. Let me know what you fucking think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. Viagra on a pole, folks. Viagra on a goddamn pole. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.